A billionaire living in solitude, deceived by the woman he trusted the most. But a 6-year-old girl with eyes full of sorrow changed his life forever. A story of love betrayal and the salvation of a lonely heart that will leave you glued to the screen. Don't miss it. In today's video, we will dive into the thrilling and emotional journey of Harrison, from a cold, wealthy, yet lonely man, to discovering the true value of love, family, and courage. Follow along as this story will make your heart tremble. The October sunset cast its glow over the streets of Manhattan, painting every window pane and maple leaf with a classic golden hue. Amidst this romantic scene, Harrison at 42 felt no romance at all. He stood before the Gilded Rose, a restaurant that was a symbol of luxury and mystique, but his heart remained a cold, empty space. He was a self-made billionaire, one of the most powerful names in the tech world, yet his success felt like an impenetrable wall separating him from any true emotion. Loneliness had become a familiar companion since a past tragedy, transforming his heart into a fortified fortress, reluctant to let anyone in. The Gilded Rose was more than just a restaurant. It was a theater of fleeting dreams. Here, crystal chandeliers showered light onto a glittering marble floor like a Milky Way, and the scent of white roses mingled with the delicate aroma of Western spices, creating a space that was both lavish and enchanting. Harrison had chosen this place because he believed a special evening deserved a special setting. He had instructed his assistant to prepare everything down to the finest detail, from the table by the window to Isabella's favorite wine. He wanted this evening to be perfect, as if to atone for all the lonely years that had passed. As he adjusted his cufflink, preparing to step inside, a small, hesitant voice spoke from below. "Mr.?" Harrison looked down. There stood a girl no older than 6, her clothes tattered and dirty. She held out a small, grimy hand toward him. Her eyes, a strangely deep brown, didn't shy away from his gaze. Instead, they held a sense of maturity, a wisdom far beyond her years. It made Harrison pause. Those eyes did not contain the familiar plea of a beggar. They held a deep sorrow, an understanding that transcended the bounds of life. Harrison pulled out a few dollar bills and gently placed them in her hand. He did it naturally, out of habit, without a second thought. The little girl clutched the money tightly, but instead of running off, she looked up at him again. "Mister," she whispered, "be careful tonight. Not everyone is as good as they seem." Her words felt like a mysterious prophecy, planting a vague sense of unease in Harrison's mind. He tried to ask more, but she had already turned and disappeared into the bustling street, vanishing like a ghost. When Harrison stepped inside, all unease melted away. Isabella was waiting at their table, a radiant smile gracing a face likened to a master sculptor's masterpiece. Her golden hair was softly curled, and a navy evening gown hugged her every alluring curve. Isabella, at 35, was the embodiment of elegance and sophistication. "You're late," she teased, giving him a light kiss on the cheek. Her smile, her laughter, her very presence. They all filled the void in Harrison's heart, making him temporarily forget the strange warning. He believed he had found the perfect woman, one who would help him build a new life and escape his past. He didn't know that a terrifying secret lay behind her beauty, and the little girl's whisper was a prophecy for his fate. He gently pulled out her chair, the twinkling chandelier light reflecting in her hair, creating a magical halo. "I would never miss a moment like this," Harrison said, feeling his heart beat faster. "Tonight, Isabella, is a very special night." The interior of the Gilded Rose became warmer and more romantic as Harrison and Isabella settled at their elegantly set table. They raised glasses of red wine, a vintage Harrison had gone to great lengths to find, and reminisced about their 2 years together. But deep down, the unease from the words of the little girl, Mia, still haunted Harrison's mind like a phantom. He tried to push the feeling away by focusing on Isabella, yet with every word and gesture from her, the scattered pieces of the puzzle seemed to grow more suspicious. "Do you still remember our first date?" Harrison asked, his voice low and warm. How could I forget? Isabella laughed. You spilled coffee on my favorite white shirt right in the hotel lobby. I thought you were just a clumsy businessman trying to impress me. Her words sounded sincere, but Harrison noticed Isabella didn't look him in the eye when she said it. He subconsciously glanced around and noticed something strange. Isabella was far too familiar with this place. She called a few waiters by name, asking about their lives with an attitude not of a frequent customer, but more like a covert manager checking on things. When Harrison asked, "Do you come here often?" Isabella replied evasively, "Sometimes. It's a special place perfect for occasions like this." Her answer didn't reassure Harrison. On the contrary, it planted another seed of doubt. Just then, the restaurant manager, a stern-looking man, approached their table. He carried a small box wrapped in golden paper and placed it in front of Isabella. "A gift from the restaurant," he said with an ambiguous smile, "to celebrate this special night." Harrison was taken aback. He had never mentioned the significance of this date to anyone at the restaurant. He looked at Isabella. Her eyes sparkled with excitement but also held a hint of surprise. She slowly opened the box, revealing a sparkling blue diamond necklace, an expensive and exquisite piece of jewelry. "You didn't have to do this, Harrison," she whispered, but he could clearly see the craving in her eyes. He didn't say a word, he just watched. He began to realize that this was no surprise. The gift felt like a secret signal, a confirmation of some plan he was completely unaware of. Despite the growing discomfort, Harrison tried to maintain his calm facade. But when the waiter brought out the chocolate cake, Harrison felt as if all his senses had become sharper than ever. The cake was perfectly presented, covered in a smooth layer of cream, and decorated with fresh berries looking like a piece of lethal art. "You're so thoughtful," Isabella said, her eyes fixed on the cake. "They say this is an exclusive recipe from the chef." Isabella suddenly stood up, interrupting Harrison's thoughts. "I'm just going to the restroom for a bit. Don't eat the dessert without me." She kissed his forehead and walked away. Harrison watched her graceful back, but the feeling now was not love, but a cold suspicion. He realized her haste wasn't to fix her lipstick, but to ensure the product was perfectly prepared. The cake sat there like an elaborate trap, and Harrison knew he didn't have much time. A sudden surge of fear and desperation welled up inside him, a feeling he had never experienced in his life. The moment Isabella left, Harrison felt as if the world around him abruptly slowed down. The restaurant's melodious music became distorted, and the laughter and chatter of other diners were reduced to meaningless noise. He stared at the chocolate cake before him. Each layer of cream and every berry now possessed a cold, menacing beauty instead of a tempting one. The cake was like a silent piece of evidence, accusing him of a conspiracy he could hardly believe. His logic told him this was just a delusion triggered by a child's random words. But his intuition, the very thing that had helped him build an empire, screamed a warning. It reminded him of Mia's world-weary eyes, of the courage she showed by daring to speak the truth. Harrison had lived a life full of pitfalls and deceit, and he knew that sometimes the truth comes from the most unexpected places. He had learned to trust his gut. Just then a small figure darted between the tables. It was Mia. She hadn't run away but had hidden, trying to find a way back. With a look of pure terror, she weaved through the crowd, avoiding the eyes of waiters and security guards. When she reached Harrison's table, Mia bent down, her voice a dry, breathless whisper. "Mister, they're looking for me. They said they'd teach me a lesson. I had to come back to warn you again." She trembled, her frail shoulders shaking. Mia's words weren't just about the cake, but about a profound desperation to save a good person. She had risked her life to return, all because of one kind act from Harrison. Harrison looked into her eyes. He saw the truth, the fear, and the desperation. All those emotions tore down the last wall of doubt within him. He realized this was no joke. This was a cry for help. A surge of anger swelled in his chest. Not everyone can buy something called loyalty, and he had earned it from a nameless little girl. "What's wrong, Harrison?" Isabella's sharp voice rang out from behind him. She was approaching, her radiant smile still in place, her eyes never leaving the cake. Harrison had no time to think. He needed to act immediately before Isabella sat down and cleaned up Mia's mess. He pretended to drop his napkin, a clumsy move Isabella had once teased him about. Harrison bent down out of Isabella's sight. In that brief moment under the table, his hand, though trembling, moved with fierce determination, quickly swapping the two cake plates. The faded cake now sat on Isabella's plate. He stood up, forcing a smile. His heart pounded, feeling as if he were on a fragile tightrope with a chasm below. "Perhaps I should keep this cake for you, my love," Harrison said, pulling out Isabella's chair. "After all, it's a gift from the restaurant just for you." Isabella smiled a brilliant smile, completely unaware that the trap she had set for her lover was now set for herself. She sat down, her eyes sparkling as she looked at the cake before her. Harrison watched her, seeing the feigned innocence on her face, and he knew that the curtain was about to fall on this play. Harrison sat across from Isabella, the fork in his hand, feeling impossibly heavy. His heart pounded not from love but from tension. He carefully observed her every move, trying to read even the slightest change. Unbeknownst to her, the cake she was enjoying was a ticking time bomb she had set off herself. "Delicious!" Isabella exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with satisfaction. "You should try some, Harrison. This dessert is a masterpiece." Harrison simply nodded, struggling to swallow a bite of the harmless cake. The sweetness of the chocolate now tasted bitter. He noticed Isabella eating very quickly, almost devouring each piece, as if she wanted to finish the meal as soon as possible to see how her plan was unfolding. About 15 minutes later, the first signs began to appear. Isabella raised a hand to rub her temple, a subconscious but uneasy gesture. "Just a slight headache," she said, her voice a little shaky. Harrison saw tiny beads of sweat on her forehead. He knew this wasn't an ordinary headache. He had seen these symptoms in movies about poisons. Each of her reactions, from the slight trembling of her fingertips to her glassy eyes, was a curse that had backfired on her. Harrison lowered his voice, a deadly calmness enveloping him. "You don't look well. You know this restaurant too well, and you also know what effect this cake will have, don't you?" Isabella looked up, her expression suddenly changing. The initial surprise turned to panic, and finally a cold fury. "What are you talking about?" she said. "Do you think I'm that kind of person?" Harrison didn't answer. He just looked straight into her eyes. His silence was like a verdict. Isabella no longer had the strength to act. The poison's power was attacking her nervous system. Her denials grew weaker. "I never intended to eat that cake," Harrison said. "I switched the plates, and I also know that the messages on your phone don't lie." The smile on Isabella's lips vanished. She snatched the phone from her purse, but it was too late. Harrison already had the evidence on her phone messages with someone named M. Harrison had seen those messages. They were filled with greed and chilling callousness. Isabella had been tracking him, meticulously planning his death. Their entire love story was nothing more than a staged play for a single purpose: to seize his assets. Isabella tried to stand up, but her legs gave way. Tears began to stream down her once beautiful face. "No, it's not like that. You have to believe me," she stammered. Harrison looked at her with an expression of deep disappointment. "I did believe you," he said, his voice trembling. "But you lied, Isabella." Isabella collapsed, clutching her chest. "It wasn't supposed to be me," she whispered, looking at the half-eaten cake on her plate. "It was supposed to be you." Harrison no longer felt anger or hatred. He only felt a profound sadness. He had trusted, he had loved, but it was all a lie. Isabella, the woman he had thought was his other half, was just a pitiful villain driven by greed. It was only now that Harrison truly believed Mia's warning. The little girl had seen everything and had risked her life to save him from a deadly trap. And now Harrison knew that he had to not only save his own life, but also protect Mia from those who had set this deadly trap. The chaos unfolded too quickly. Isabella collapsed into her chair, her body convulsing and her breathing becoming strained. Harrison immediately pulled out his phone, dialing for an ambulance, but his eyes were fixed on the people around him. He noticed a terrifying detail: they were being watched. From a table in the corner, two men in black suits with cold expressions were staring intently at them. Their gaze wasn't one of curiosity, but of scrutiny and evaluation. When Harrison looked back, one of them had already pulled out a phone, whispering to someone. A chilling sensation ran down Harrison's spine. This was not an isolated incident, but an organized conspiracy. Harrison knew Isabella was not the sole mastermind. She was merely a pawn in a much larger game. When the ambulance arrived, Harrison spoke carefully to the paramedics and police, only stating that his girlfriend had suddenly fallen ill. He knew he couldn't reveal the truth here, as he couldn't trust anyone. As Isabella was lifted onto the stretcher, Harrison looked into her eyes. They were filled with panic regret and a profound fear. After the ambulance left, Harrison turned to retrieve Isabella's phone, but the two men in suits were already approaching. "We think you should come with us," one of them said, his voice as cold as ice. "We want to ask you a few things about this incident." Harrison knew that if he went with them, he would never return. He backed away, staring into their eyes. At this moment, he wasn't just protecting himself, but also Mia. He saw the little girl's image in his mind, and he knew she was in danger. They had found her earlier, and she might have been killed. Just then, a small figure appeared. It was Mia. She ran to Harrison, hiding behind his back. Her large, round eyes were filled with panic, and she whispered urgently, "They're looking for me. They asked where I was. We have to go, mister. We have to go." Harrison didn't hesitate. He took Mia's hand, and they both started to run. The chase was intense. The two men in suits were in close pursuit, yelling threats. Harrison and Mia ran through the streets, weaving through dark alleys. Harrison, though accustomed to a life of luxury, was surprisingly adaptable to street life. He ran at full speed, but Mia ran even faster, leading him through paths only those like her would know. She was not useless, but a guide, a survivor. She was used to running. "I know a safe place," Mia said, her voice breathless. "A place where we can hide. A church." They reached an old, quaint church. Harrison pushed open the heavy door, and they both slipped inside. The space within was quiet and peaceful, the flickering candlelight like silent prayers. An elderly priest with silver hair and kind eyes approached them. "What is wrong, my son?" he asked. "We need a place to hide," Harrison said, panting. "There are people chasing us." The priest looked at them, his eyes showing clear understanding. He led Harrison and Mia into a small room, and he listened to Harrison's story of the betrayal, the conspiracy, and Mia's bravery. He looked into Harrison's eyes and saw the truth. Harrison took out Mia's phone and gave it to the priest. "This is the evidence. This is the recording the little girl made." The priest took the phone and he said, "I will call a friend of mine, a detective. I trust him." While the priest made the call, Harrison looked at Mia. She was fast asleep, her small face exhausted. He gently stroked her disheveled hair and swore that he would protect her at all costs. He knew the fight wasn't over, but he now had an ally. And he knew that with the help of the little girl, he would win. The church bells chimed, piercing the silent night. Harrison sat beside Mia, holding her close. The flickering candlelight cast its glow on her face, making her usual world-weariness disappear, leaving only the innocence of a sleeping child. The priest's prayer rang out, gentle yet powerful. Suddenly the priest's phone rang. His face grew tense. He listened, his voice filled with worry. Then he hung up and looked at Harrison with regret. "My son, there is news you need to know," he said, his voice lowering. "That woman, Isabella Monroe, she passed away at the hospital an hour ago. The doctors couldn't neutralize the poison." The priest's words were like a lightning bolt to Harrison. He felt no joy or vindication. He felt a deep sadness. Isabella, the woman he had once loved, was dead. Greed had killed her, not him. He looked at Mia, and he knew that she had saved him, but she couldn't save someone who had chosen to destroy herself. Harrison took out Mia's old phone. He handed it to the priest. "This is the evidence," he said. "The recording the little girl made." The priest took the phone, and he and Harrison listened. The recording played in the small room, and the voices of Isabella and a strange man came through clearly. "Are you sure this dose is enough?" Isabella's voice asked, full of anxiety. "Can I trust you?" "You can trust me, my love," the man's voice replied, full of confidence. "It's a substance that's nearly undetectable. It will look like a natural heart attack. And then all of that fortune will be ours." Harrison listened with a chilling heart. He had once thought Isabella loved him, but it was all a lie. She was just a deceiver, a murderer, a puppet in the hands of someone else. "We must give this recording to the police," the priest said. "I have already called a friend of mine, Detective Miller. He is a man of integrity, and he cannot be bought." Harrison nodded. He knew that Mia had done something extraordinary. She had not only saved his life, but also helped expose a ruthless criminal plot. When the detective arrived, he looked at Harrison and Mia with respect. When Detective Miller heard the recording, his expression became serious. "This is crucial evidence," he said. "We are dealing with an organized criminal syndicate." Harrison and Mia recounted their story from the first warning to the chase. Detective Miller listened carefully, taking notes on everything. He didn't doubt their story because the evidence proved everything. "Thank you both," Detective Miller said. "You have saved many lives. This syndicate has been operating for 2 years, and we have identified 3 suspicious deaths that we will reinvestigate. I believe there are many more victims." Harrison looked at Mia. She was fast asleep, unaware that she had become a hero. Harrison knew that with her help, he had not only saved himself, but also many other people. And as the sun rose, Harrison knew he would begin a new life. He was no longer a lonely billionaire, but a father. And he would do everything to protect his brave little girl. After that fateful night, Harrison's life was completely turned upside down. He was no longer a billionaire living in his own isolated world. He became the focus of the media, a living witness to a ruthless criminal conspiracy. With undeniable evidence from Mia's recording, the police swiftly apprehended the masterminds, including M, the head of the criminal organization. The truth was exposed, and Harrison's name was cleared. However, the most important thing for Harrison wasn't the public's praise, but the fact that he had found a new purpose in life. He had not only saved his own life, but also saved a little girl who had become his hero. After everything settled down, Harrison did something he had never imagined. He applied to adopt Mia. The process was not easy, but with the help of Detective Miller and the kind-hearted priest Harrison, overcame all legal obstacles. On the day Mia officially became Harrison's daughter, she couldn't hide her joy. She wore a new dress, her hair was neatly combed, and her big eyes sparkled with happiness. She was no longer a homeless child, but a member of a family. Their new life began. Harrison learned how to be a father, and Mia learned how to be a daughter. He taught her to read, and she taught him to see the world with a pure heart. He took her to luxurious clothing stores, and she chose a simple dress, telling him, "It's not beautiful clothes that make a person beautiful, but kindness." Her words moved Harrison. He realized that the little girl had taught him a lesson no university or business could ever teach. Harrison also made major changes in his life. He established a large charity fund called the Mia Foundation, with the goal of helping homeless children, providing them with food, clothes, shelter, and education. He didn't just give money, he also participated in the fund's activities, listening to the stories of other children and seeing a reflection of Mia in each one of them. One evening, Harrison and Mia sat on the rooftop of their new home, looking out at the city sparkling with lights. "Daddy, are you sad?" Mia asked, her voice full of empathy. "About Miss Isabella?" Harrison looked at her and answered sincerely, "I'm not sad, my daughter. Miss Isabella went down the wrong path, but you showed me another path, a path of light and kindness." Mia smiled a radiant smile and said, "Daddy Harrison, I love you." Harrison held her in his arms. He no longer felt lonely. He had a family. He had a daughter. And he knew that his greatest wealth was not the numbers in his bank account, but the love and courage he had found in the eyes of the little girl. 6 months after that fateful night, Harrison and Mia returned to the Gilded Rose. What was once the stage for a tragedy had now become a symbol of a new beginning. The former manager was behind bars, and a new young and honest manager welcomed them with genuine respect. He led them to the very same table where it all began. The atmosphere was no longer the oppressive tension of that evening, but instead the warmth of hope and happiness. "This table looks so different now, Daddy," Mia said, her eyes sparkling as she looked around. "It's so much happier." "That's right, my daughter," Harrison replied, smiling, "because now we come here as a real family." During dinner, they talked about the past few months. Mia spoke about her new school and the friends she had helped. Harrison listened with pride, realizing that Mia's kindness was not a coincidence, but an inherent part of her nature. Harrison also shared about his work. He had shifted a large part of his business empire towards social projects, especially the Mia Foundation, which had opened 3 new support centers for homeless children. "Do you know why I'm doing all of this?" Harrison asked Mia. "Because you have a kind heart," she answered, full of innocence. "Not just that, my daughter," Harrison said, taking her hand. "It's because you taught me a lesson. You showed me that the greatest wealth isn't money but courage and kindness. A 6-year-old girl possessed the wisdom and bravery that any adult would yearn for." As dinner ended and they prepared to leave, Mia suddenly stopped. She looked out the window where a small beggar boy was huddling on the sidewalk. "Daddy, can we do something?" she asked. Harrison nodded. He and Mia walked outside together, approaching the boy gently. Mia talked to him, shared her story, and encouraged him to go to a Mia Foundation support center. Seeing his daughter do this, Harrison felt boundless happiness. He knew that she had not only saved his life, but had also changed it forever. That night, as Harrison tucked Mia into bed, he lay down beside her. "Thank you for choosing me," Harrison whispered, kissing her forehead. "Thank you for saving me," Mia replied, her voice tiny. Harrison smiled. He had found an unconditional love, a boundless courage, and a bright future. Harrison's greatest wealth was not the numbers in his bank account, but the smile on his daughter's face, and the certainty that they had found in each other the greatest treasure of all, a true family. Today's story proves that no matter how difficult and challenging life may be, love and courage are always the forces that help us overcome. Harrison found family love and redemption in the most unexpected ways. Remember, sometimes the ones we help are the ones who save us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another inspiring story. And if you have a story of your own to share, leave a comment below. We're always ready to listen. See you in the next video.